Well, we have an incredibly volatile situation developing as a severe weather outbreak looking more and more likely. If you look at some of the wording coming out from the Storm Prediction Center, I think some folks think I make this stuff up just to do it for here on YouTube. But look, they're saying long track, high-end tornadoes will be possible. That's what jumped out at me. That's for Saturday as we look into the south too, and not just across the south. We're worried about what's going to be happening today as this strong jet streak swings out of Texas into Missouri, into Illinois, West Kentucky, West Tennessee. It's one of the reasons that if you look at the Storm Prediction Center's outlook, they've now bullseyed this area for a lot of Missouri. This has expanded somewhat from yesterday, north into Iowa, a little bit further to the east into Indiana, and then south into Kentucky. This is pretty much the same. We're going to talk about what's changed today, what sort of is the same. What's the same is that we're still expecting a widespread severe weather outbreak. And some of these tornadoes could be really strong with some big hail too. And I think you've got to pay attention to the damaging wind threat, because when you look at the winds aloft, especially, this right here is at 500 millibars. You've got a jet streak that's pushing 120 to 140 miles an hour, swinging out of Oklahoma into this environment where we're going to be very, I guess, favorable for thunderstorm development. And these, again, could be really strong. And if you translate some of this wind down to the surface, which I think you will, now you've got the problem of damaging winds, and embedded in these lines of thunderstorms could be some tornadoes too. As this shifts off to the east, on the front right side of that is where we're going to see the main severe weather. Another thing to keep in mind, across all of the central U.S., I would even dare say even into the east, take a look. These winds are going to really get gusty. Some of these winds will be non-thunderstorm winds, so windy times ahead, even if you're not inside of any of these severe thunderstorms. All right, let's break this down a little bit closer here. I want to look at the tornado outlook too, because this is really impressive. You've got a hashed area now. This is a significant risk from Illinois all the way into southern Iowa, south now into Alabama, Mississippi, and then down into the deep south, and right along the Gulf Coast too. The problem would be some of these tornadoes will be coming at night. So I think that is a major concern here. Of course, the area that is really enhanced for the tornado risk, if you look here, you can see a strong bullseye here into eastern Missouri, southern parts of Illinois, and then into parts of western Kentucky. That includes places like, really, honestly, I'm not even going to draw it out. You get down here to Memphis, you're not out of that risk. If you really look at the significant risk area, now you're talking about Memphis, St. Louis, all the cities here up to Quincy, and then down into the deep south, into Mississippi as well. So Jackson up to Evansville. I think you've got to watch some of these storms here as they push east late tonight. Let's move ahead in time. Now we're looking at Saturday. We're going to look at the future radar. We're going to time all of this out for you in just a second. But we've definitely seen this as a concerning area here across Mississippi, Alabama. That's where the Storm Prediction Center is talking about those long track, really strong tornadoes that could move through on Saturday. And then if you look at the probabilistic severe weather here, they've got this clearly hashed out. This covers even more real estate than what we're seeing on Friday. So two distinct outbreaks too, with the same storm essentially, but you've got two pieces of energy causing the thunderstorms. And that risk pretty far north too, into Kentucky and Tennessee. That's Nashville, that's Knoxville, and of course that's into the south. That's Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, down into southern parts of Mississippi. You can see where you are and you get the idea. And this threat, I think, it wanes at night as it moves into the Appalachians, into parts of South Carolina, but it's not a zero threat. And there's just going to be so much wind shear going on. It's a pretty dangerous situation. And if you're new to the channel, I try to be pretty conservative with this stuff. I'm not here to scare people, to come out and just put the fear in you so that you'll come back and watch and you'll be all scared. And that's not my point. The point is I want you to be aware of the situation. And to me, this looks pretty dangerous. I spent years on television, guys, broadcasting. I was a chief meteorologist for years. And if I was looking at this, I'm going, you know what? I'm probably going to have to do some overtime work today. We're probably going to have to bring some extra staff in to cover this. So this is pretty impressive looking. And then as we head into Saturday, or Sunday rather, this threat pushes into the northeast. It's not a zero threat into this region as for tornadoes, but you can see it's a much lower risk, I guess, but nonetheless, we're going to see some damaging winds, some hail, and some tornadoes. Let's start into the northeast. This is going to be timing it out. We're going to go all across the country here. Speaking of that, and we'll work our way backwards. That rain, shower, and thunderstorm activity really moves in as we head into Sunday as our cold front moves through, and then temperatures will drop pretty quickly. Now let's move on to the south. I know we're moving pretty quick. I want to focus in on where these thunderstorms are going to be developing. Some of these across Missouri could be strong through the day today, but the main line will start to fire as we head into the afternoon, into the evening hours here across Kansas, Oklahoma, eastern Oklahoma, and they'll start to really ramp up now as we move into the afternoon. The time above my head is Central Time, so take an hour off for Eastern, and you get the idea. These storms across the south, really just some showers. They could pulse up a little bit, but your main energy is going to be going up here into Missouri. This would be probably a bow line or a cluster of thunderstorms that bow up together. And what I think is interesting is if you look here, you can see how that rear inflow jet is starting to bow these thunderstorms out. So I think damaging winds are going to be a threat. Embedded in these storms across Iowa and Missouri will be some tornadoes. And now, as we get into the evening hours, now we're getting into dark. This is 9 p.m. Central. This, to me, is textbook. You're starting to see the idea of how this wind shear is really going to line up with your upper level winds and shear these storms out. So supercells starting to develop into the overnight across Illinois, eastern Missouri, I think even down into West Tennessee, West Kentucky, and now into Illinois into the overnight hours. So this is an overnight threat that pushes off to the east. Once we get toward 1 a.m., that threat's not done. I think the tornadoes would still roll on, the damaging wind threat, and also very large hail possible with pretty strong updrafts. This calms down some, okay? As it moves into Ohio early in the morning, you can see it starts to weaken a little bit, but our new risk starts to pick up as our next piece of energy swings out of Texas. Another area of low pressure is going to develop along our front and move north. So now we're into round 2. Don't get me wrong, and don't get it twisted. There's still going to be a few thunderstorms moving through Ohio. Some of these could be on the strong side. Now we're focusing on the deep south. We're watching into Louisiana, Mississippi. As that next jet streak swings through, these thunderstorms start to fire up heading into the afternoon and evening hours, and they start to get really strong. Now across West Tennessee again, into Mississippi, into places like Jackson, north all the way to Tupelo. Some of these storms could get pretty doggone strong, and you run the risk, again, with a highly sheared environment for tornadoes anywhere in this area as we head into the afternoon and evening hours. These move east as we get into early Sunday morning. So I'm backing this up just a little bit because I want to talk about Tennessee and Kentucky a little bit. This is looking more impressive to me today than maybe it was yesterday. If you look at the upper level winds, we've clearly got an enhanced area here. Don't get it confused with the precipitation shield. You're still in a very highly sheared environment here across the south. So I think this would be the highest risk for tornadoes. The Storm Prediction Center clearly agreeing when you look at their map too. This is the tornado risk. But that risk pushed pretty far north. Now we are hashed out all the way into southern Kentucky and a decent risk all the way up toward the Ohio River. Let's continue marching this ahead in time. Thunderstorms moving east into the early morning hours of Sunday, now into central and eastern Kentucky, into southern parts of Tennessee, and then down into Georgia. That severe threat into Georgia, certainly high 2 here as well. You're also in that hashed area for severe storms and also tornadoes. That risk, you can time it out early into the morning and then into the panhandle of Florida as well as these storms move east. We may see these line up. So we may go from more of a supercell structured type setup here across Alabama to more of a linear threat here with the thunderstorms lining up with damaging winds, and embedded in these storms would be tornadoes. This moves east up into Kentucky. Some of these storms up into this region all the way up into Ohio. Southern Ohio could see some strong storms. And I think you got that tornado risk all the way up into Ohio again with this line that moves through. Again, it's a pretty highly sheared environment. Damaging winds, I think, would be the main threat here, with the tornado risk still going across the southeast as these storms push further to the east. This is something I don't show that often because I think it can get hyped a little bit. People can get a little bit, out of hand sometimes on social media with the significant tornado parameter. But I can tell you in severe class and also in, I guess it would be severe weather class, in college, one thing we looked at would be anything over a 1. When you get thunderstorms firing in an environment where you see anything over a 1, that has a risk of tornadoes. You've got to look. This parameter takes in a lot of different things. Spin in the atmosphere. It takes into account instability. And it's basically an index. It's maxed out here, okay? I mean, you're getting into 10, 11, 12, numbers like that across parts of Missouri, Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky. When you see that, that just tells me that it's a highly favored environment as these storms move through for tornadoes. And not just tornadoes. Anytime you get rotating supercells like that and updrafts, you're going to get big hail too. Monster hail, the kind that really breaks stuff. All right, as we move into Saturday, you notice that risk starts to go down some, or at least the significant tornado parameter goes down. But I think it's just so high that it's off the charts that across Indiana and Illinois, you go, well, 6 isn't too bad. It is. It's still definitely worth watching. And now our explosive tornadic area develops across the south. Louisiana, Mississippi, moving east into Alabama and Mississippi into these areas, especially here into eastern Mississippi, into Alabama at night. That is always a bad sign. And then into Georgia. Now, look, it weakens quite a bit. You're back down into this lower single digits, but that tornado risk squeezing as far north, you can see into West Virginia with these storms. So as the squall line moves through, there's going to be enough wind shear that I think you have to pay attention and be weather aware, have a way to get warnings when they come out. And then moving into Sunday, that risk starts to push off to the East Coast. Dew points on the way up. This is a significant ingredient to these storms. Look, there's your dry line punching in, and you can see along this would be where you're getting your major thunderstorms developing, but you're just priming this area with dew points rising up into the mid to upper 60s here. That's why I think you're going to see the violent tornadoes and the long-lived tornadoes the most here across the south. You certainly could get some quick spin-ups, especially into the overnight hours up here into Ohio, into Kentucky. But when you're looking at your long track, really strong tornadoes, your environment is most favorable here across the south. And I would argue you're pushing dew points up into the 50s now across Tennessee and Kentucky. And I am praying for a bust as well. Someone's putting in the comments, me too. Me too. All right, let's move north. A little bit closer here toward the Great Lakes into Iowa. You can see these storms moving here, pushing north. Look at that bow. That is impressive. So there could be a line of straight line damaging winds that get going here, embedded in that, and especially to the south here, tornado risk really high. And I think you got to watch up into this region too. This weakens clearly as it moves into Wisconsin to some much cooler air. But this, to me, I mean, you can see how you could see tornadoes just racing off to the east and northeast with this type of setup. And what really would happen is your storm motion would be this way. You'd want to see these right-moving supercells, okay? That's how your tornadoes would show up on the radar. So, to me, when I look at a future radar, not even having to look at the upper-level dynamics, I know they're there. I was looking at them, the 500 millibar chart. 700 millibar, you're looking at the surface winds coming in, the helicity, it's all there. So the tornado risk definitely high here as you get these storms again moving like this generally, and now the curvature would push some of these supercells moving to the right. And the right moving supercells are the nasty ones, and it looks like that's what is trying to be depicted on the radar. The future radar heading into early Saturday morning, and this moves east. Not quite the same look here. You can see the rain going here across parts of Wisconsin. I do want to show you the type because it's going to be cold enough that we switch to snow on the backside of this. And then there comes the severe weather. I think maybe even as far north as Pennsylvania. You can see that. Not necessarily as strong of a risk as we head into the south compared to the south, but there could be some really strong storms as this squall line pushes east, and then look, turning cold enough in areas where we're seeing tornadoes that there could be a little bit of snow on the back end. Not a huge snow event. Severe weather clearly taking the front seat here. Storms firing across Kansas today. All right, so back into Oklahoma, you can see this really is all to your east, but the dry line punching through, and there could be a few showers, but certainly not a huge deal until, boom, there we go into the evening hours as our jet streak punches through, really getting things going. Thunderstorms lifting to the north, rain changing to snow back across parts of Nebraska, really windy here too. Even with a little bit of snow, we could see blizzard conditions with, and I say that because that drops visibility down to 0 with whiteout conditions. and it could be really tough to drive, especially into the overnight, into the early morning hours. Colder too, temperatures dropping, and look, a little bit of snow possible as that weak energy swings off to the east. Further to the, well, let's look at these temperatures, by the way. I think this is impressive looking. You're into the 80s today. Okay, you can't even see my map, what I'm drawing here. I'm in orange. I'm in winter mode. My summer mode is more of a bluish color or pink, but yeah, you get the idea. We've got 80s punching all the way up the Mississippi River. Very unstable air. Certainly not good signs on the temperature front. Further to the north, this is a closer look at those storms across Iowa, swinging north as we move into the evening hours. And what's interesting is that some of these storms, I mean, look back into here. Clearly, this isn't going to be the major severe weather area, but there could be some decent thunderstorms going across parts of Minnesota. If you go back and look at the Storm Prediction Center's outlook, look at that. They've got a 1 out of 5. That's still, I mean, if it was an average day, we would still be looking at this going, there could be some pretty strong storms across Minnesota. And the fact that that tornado risk is into parts of southern Minnesota, really impressive looking. So you get the idea. And that would probably be right into this region as we get these storms lifting north. But nonetheless, some strong storms possible here. And on the west side of this, some snow. Flipping over, especially as we head into early Saturday morning, this could get really heavy here into parts of central and northwest Minnesota with wind blowing around and temperatures on the way down, starting off in the 50s and 60s, 70s in some areas, but heading into Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, not getting out of the 20s as that cold air rushes in. And this is where our energy is right now. It's across the Four Corners states. It's been dropping quite a bit of snow and rain here. It's moving east, and our next storm is moving into California. That's bringing some heavy snow as we head into Saturday, into Sunday, and then we look to the Pacific Northwest. More snow and rain here into the Cascades. We'll see that continue into tonight, into tomorrow. Some of that lifting north out of the Sierra, the central Sierra anyway, but more snow and rain going to be moving in here with snow across Idaho, Montana too. Temperatures across the southwest kind of skipped through that, much cooler than what we've seen recently. We will start to see numbers rebound some as we head into Saturday afternoon, and then maybe a little bit warmer as we head into Sunday afternoon. We'll be back up into the 70s for places like Phoenix, also into the Central Valley of California, back into the mid-60s, but typically cold into the mountains and into the Pacific Northwest. Those temperatures here, colder, a little bit of a warming trend for you guys too as we head into Sunday in some areas. We'll be back up into the 50s and 60s for places like Boise. Spokane, still kind of cool here, but these temperatures also slowly rebounding, and into Seattle as well. So that's what we're looking at. Very, very active over the next couple of days. If you're just coming over, thanks for watching this little bit that you've seen. It's a live video, so it's available for playback. You can go back and watch it. I hope you will. If you're brand new, I hope you'll consider subscribing. Another update coming later today, and I'll be updating through the weekend as new data comes in. Have a great night have a great day, and I'll see you this afternoon.